Let's get started. So first of all, I think I know most of you, but my name is Karen Smythe. I'm the mayor. I thank you all very much for being here tonight. This is actually our sixth public information session regarding the sewer. The first one was April 1st of 2025, and we've come a long way since then, for sure. We still have a ways to go, but we are in a very different place today than we were a year ago. I did want to just start, the purpose of tonight is to talk about the expansion and to talk about the different technologies that have been reviewed, and also certainly to give you all an opportunity to ask questions. But I did want to start with current operations update, and I want to start with the odor issues. And we have our sewer operator here. H2O Innovations is the name of the company, and Les Kuhn is our operator. They've been our operator since August 1st, 2025. So with that, Les, if you just talk a little bit about the odor issues.
First, let me say I'm sorry that for those of you who have, obviously experienced the odors. I want to assure you that it is not due to process control at the plant. What it is due to is odors that come from our equalization tank. What we ended up discovering after a little over a month was that it came down to one piece unit. It was a fan that is connected to that EQ tank, and that fan pulls the air from there, sends it through the carbon filter, and that's what takes out the odor and helps it smell cleaner and less offensive. We have since replaced that and put spares on the shelf. So now in the event that if we discover that happens again, we will have it ready and available to replace immediately.
And that fan was replaced on Monday. I think it was Monday afternoon. So again, if anybody smells anything, please let us know. And I would argue we also are adding it to our maintenance plan, so we will have a plan to replace it. We're looking at possibly upgrading the model so that it makes it longer than this one didn't even quite make it a year. Last March when this went into place. So that's the piece on the odor. And then on the other side, the process side, we have had a couple of non-compliance events. And I want to clarify a couple things, and I'm going to ask Jen to correct me when I say this wrong, but a non-compliance event is we are required to submit a report when we don't meet a limit on one of the items that we are required to test for or to treat for, or if we have a discharge of partially or untreated discharge into the stream. What else are we supposed to? I think those are the two main things.
That's the main things, yes.
And so we include that non-compliance report with our monthly report that goes to the DEC. It doesn't necessarily turn into a New York alert. New York alert is, I think some of you have signed up for New York alert. Turns out DEC did something wrong when they set it up. So our New York alerts were not actually being sent out. That has now been corrected. And so now any New York alert, if you're signed up for it, you will receive that. You sign up for all of Dutchess County, so when you sign up, you will get other alerts, and I think there's other systems that also collect stormwater. So when you have a big storm, there are several systems that will overflow because of the extra stormwater. So you'll see a number of alerts like that. We do not collect the stormwater in our system, so that's not an issue that we have. Yeah, Craig, if you want to come sit over here. No problem. So New York alert, again, is so we've gotten conflicting information. A year ago, we were told that the New York alert is when you discharge into somewhere that's not expected. So the recent discharge went into the expected stream, and so based on the initial communication we had, that would not have required a New York alert, but we've subsequently been told that it does. So we've asked for clarification as to we want to do everything the way we're supposed to, and we just want to clarify what it is that we're supposed to do. But all of that gets recorded, and then a notice of violation comes from the DEC. That is not something we issue, that's something they decide. Every non-compliance event does not necessarily turn into a notice of violation. Every New York alert doesn't necessarily turn into a notice of violation. That's up to the DEC to decide. We have been setting up a new alarm system this week, and it is scheduled to be with the final electric connections tomorrow. And that will help alert sooner the operator to any issues with levels of the tank. And as I think some of you know, we are operating with some items that are a temporary fix. So one of the biggest design issues that we have discovered is that the equalization tank is too small. And so the equalization tank is where all of the collected wastewater comes into the equalization tank. And the idea behind that is the way it comes in is in batches. So sometimes it's a huge inflow, sometimes it's a little. By having a big tank where you collect it first, the theory is you can then flow it into the plant. The plant prefers to run slow and steady, or regular and steady, I guess. And so the tank isn't big enough to take, the tank as designed isn't big enough to take in what comes in and the flows. Your question?
Maybe for less. How much bigger is the next tank?
That's a question for Robert.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure we'll get there. I'm super curious.
Okay.
But it's the current tank that we have is, I mean, it's at least double, if not 2.5 times what we have now, right?
In round numbers, the existing EQ tank is 15,000 gallons, and you have a
15,000.
surge tank of 5,000. So that's a total of 20. So right now with proposals to add another 20.
So basically doubling the capacity.
Should we ask questions at the end, or do you want questions throughout on the topic?
So this is sort of current operations. So if you want to ask a question about current operations, because the next part is Robert's going to talk about the different types of methods of wastewater treatment, et cetera. So if you have a question you think's...
Yeah, I was just wondering, with the list of like complaints, I noticed some of the ones that we had called in kind of lined up with some of the partially untreated discharges and stuff. And I thought the DEC had asked the village to keep a tally of like all the complaints. Are those going to be like publicly available, or are you still keeping like a tally just to track what the issues are?
I believe those complaints go on the monthly report.
Yes, but they do go on the monthly report, as well as we do have a tracking system for them.
We have an internal tracking system, but they are, DEC asked that they be recorded on the monthly report that we send to them, that's available at the meeting.
For full transparency, I did forget to add the ones from last month. I'm going to be updating that to receive that for.
Now, when you say last month, you mean January?
Yes.
Yeah, because we're a month behind in the report, so the February report will have at our April meeting.
And are they going to do like a test of the New York alert thing just to make sure like they go through, or are they confident that it's been fixed?
They confirmed to me that it's all fixed.
Okay.
So if we have a New York alert, I'm now signed up. I know you're signed up. A couple of folks, I've encouraged the whole board to sign up. So I think we'll know, because we'll know when we've issued it inside. And if it doesn't, if it doesn't come the other way, then we'll flag it to all of you, or we'll flag it in the report, but we will also flag it to New York Alert. But they indicated that sounds like they spent a fair amount of time figuring out what was wrong. Okay.
Did you have a question?
Just to go, so
Karen?
the expansion,
had a
yes,
question.
yes.
Is there a list of SOPs somewhere where they're recorded and can be seen?
And by an SOP, you
SOP
mean
is a
standard operating
procedures.
procedure? I don't know if that's on our website.
Okay. But the engineering have the SOPs, or there should be a list of SOPs?
Yes, I mean, there's an operation and maintenance manual, which I would assume has standard operating procedures.
It's not on the operations page.
What's that?
It's not
No,
on the
it's not on our,
operations
it's not on
page.
our, it's not on our website. That we don't
Right.
have.
But it's recorded somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And is it public information that could be seen?
I don't,
So You're asking if I can clarify.
Yep.
You're asking, is there a step-by-step guide as how to do thing A or thing B?
Yes, yep,
So there is that for specific pieces of equipment for like testing,
okay,
but for things such as like our daily operations and things like that, not necessarily, because you're not able to do the same things in the same order every day.
right,
So like, for example, we may take our influent and effluent and run through our mixed liquor. We could do those completely the other way around on another day, and that would throw off that SOP.
okay,
But there is specific instructions on how to do that, and we do train our staff
right. But you do have SOPs on file,
for equipment,
okay.
yes.
And then just one last question. One of the reports said that there was some type of leak and that some of the discharge, it said it like seeped into the ground. I don't know if you know which event I'm talking about, but
That was probably when the EQ tank overflowed.
I think that might have been it. Do you know like how much came out or how far down it seeped? Because, you know, the soils there are pretty porous and, you know, it's like 10 feet above the water table. So I'm just wondering, like, how's that tracked? Or could that maybe help pursue a grant or something for a sample well, like to test there?
Do you want to comment on that?
So the only thing that we have to judge by when you have an overflow is they have a measurement by how high the water is coming out of a manhole, and then by the space that it occupies, so your square footage. And by that you would come up with an estimate, and that's about the best we can do is provide an estimate, which is what we were able to do.
Gotcha. Okay, because I'm just wondering for future if this is like a bigger thing and there's more, there's really no way to know if it's getting down into like the water table that it sits right above there. And so if there's some way to test that or to know.
Yeah, so
If that
one of
impacts.
the steps in the process is when we have a spill such as that, is we do treat it with lime. And then that essentially creates basically like a Class A biosolid, and which is environmentally then friendly.
But if it's not caught right away, it could still keep making its way down.
It could, but that is why we treat with the lime.
And also in a private septic system, if you have a septic tank in a leach field, I mean, effectively you're putting it out into the ground and having it gets filtered on its way down. Am I correct? So it's effectively going through it's being filtered on its way down before it gets to the water table at the bottom.
Yeah, but if this is like a higher concentrate, you know, if it's a larger volume and a larger concentrated amount going in the same spot, I don't know if it would have the same filtration process as like a residential septic. I'm just thinking about like worst case scenario, is there some way to check, you know, this thing continues to have problems, so if it keeps going down, is there a way to check and make sure it's not impacting, you know, the water supply?
I can look up, when Robert's doing his presentation, I can look up the quantity that was estimated and look at it. I think it was about 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, I believe that is what we estimated, was 1,000.
So, yeah, we can take a look at that. Actually, I think DEC also came out and looked at it.
They did.
Well, I'm speaking generally too, like that event, yes, but generally if there's another one that goes maybe unchecked for even longer, to know if it's impacted anything, you know, just to be able to test at that site.
The goal is not to have that happen.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, but it's a reasonable question. I think it's something that we can certainly explore.
And that is, the tank that this happened with, that is one of the tanks that is getting an alarm.
Okay, so just as it relates to the EQ expansion, it is a capital project. So the design is being finalized now. It then has to be approved by the Department of Health, DEC.
Easy, yeah.
DEC. And then we have the bidding process, and then there's the construction. We are hoping that we can do all of that within this calendar year. But I think we'll see how that process goes, but that's certainly the goal. Delaware Engineering has recently conducted an audit, and we're waiting for the final report on that. And the website page, that's the wastewater treatment plant page, it is continually updated with new reports, et cetera. And it has just gone through a refresh, basically a streamlining the data so that it's easier to find. It went live Melcorca yesterday. So thanks to Melcorca, who knows how to do all those things in the background of our website. So if you haven't looked at it recently, I would encourage you to do that, because it's got history, it's got all the reports, it's got the DEC notice of violations, it's got our speedies permit, it's got a lot of information. It's also got the recording, links to the recordings of all of these all of these info sessions. And we think it's been just reorganized so that it's a little easier to find the information. And that was all I wanted to say from that standpoint. And with that, I want to turn it over to Robert Flores from Delaware Engineering. Because one of the things that we promised is we would talk about the technology. And so Robert's going to give us a little lesson in wastewater treatment.
So before we get into the specific technologies of wastewater plant, through these conversations we've had over the past year or so, we get a lot of questions about how we got here. And the village of Red Oak has been dealing with wastewater for 20 plus years. So how we got here, it's a little bit of, this presentation will go through, explain what they did, when they did it, and why we're here. Is part of the presentation.
And I was here for those 25 years.
Yeah, 25 years.
That's what you say.
Yeah.
I know when you're lying.
All right. So he'll keep us honest.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm waiting.
Yeah. So there's some of that, and then just some general background, and then we can get into some of the specifics of the planned future, right?
No, Karen, it's not on the screen.
Oh, well, that happened.
So a lot of these conversations have gone like, it seems like we just started doing this, or just the village just started doing this, but it's been over 25 years. What exists today is started 25 years ago, right?
Well, hang on.
He's talking about the plant when
Go to your screen
it's installed,
properties
not when it's
and duplicate the screen. That's usually
Well,
what
but
happens.
why-
over the plant in
HDMI.
2020.
How about if I just look at it?
Yeah, do that.
Senior housing.
Exactly.
It's the problem with setting it up too early.
So it worked just right when we first had it.
It did.
I think so, yeah.
There we go.
Next.
I had it on full screen, but.
All right, so like I said, we're just going to revisit some of the basics, right? So that's why we call it Wastewater 101. So wastewater, when we say the wastewater, sewage, whatever you want to call it, is what goes down the drain, right? From your house, from restaurants, from industries. Generally speaking, in the village, we don't have industries, so it's restaurants, businesses, and homes, right?
Oh, next, sorry.
Yeah. So wastewater, even though the great majority of it is actually water, there's pollutants in there, and there's a list of stuff that breaks down into the nasty stuff that is in wastewater, and there's a purpose of why we want to treat it, right? Because discharging wastewater to the environment in a densely populated area is no good. So that's just what the idea I'm conveying on this slide. To the next one. So believe it or not, maybe nobody in this room has this misconception, but I find this comes up a lot. People confuse water and wastewater all the time. So everybody in the village is connected to drinking water, potable water supply from the village. Not everybody in the village is connected to the wastewater system. The village has been working over the past 25 years to get everybody connected to the system, but they're not today. The two sides, the blue kind of shows you all the pipes in the village. So everybody in the village has them, some people in the town have them also. And then there's, and the green tells you there's some people, as you can tell, it's concentrated in Route 9 and 199, right? And let's go to the next one. But there was one little tidbit on there that there was, I visited several years back about being able to treat the wastewater to then reuse it, gray water systems, etc. So that's not really a thing in New York State. So, but if everyone wants to discuss that later, we can. But go ahead. Yeah. So, even though wastewater and water are different, but it's all connected, right? So the village's water supply comes from wells, and the influence of those wells is the red. It's got mostly a semicircle and then jagged line. So the wells that provide the water for the village, basically, that it's coming from that red area, right? So wastewater that's discharged, untreated wastewater is discharged into the ground inside the red area, has the potential to reach your water supply levels, right? So this is where the idea of protecting your water supply comes from, okay? So this is a generic picture of how a septic system with a leach field is supposed to work. I know probably from. Can you guys see these lights? Kind of screen big enough? Yeah.
Can't make it any bigger.
Yeah. So I think if you can, let me know. But I think if you're not familiar with your septic system in your house or where you've lived in the past, it comes out of your house, goes into a septic tank. It comes out of the septic tank, goes to a distribution box. After the distribution box goes to leach fields.
And isn't the purpose of the septic tank to have the solids settle on the bottom?
Correct. The septic tank captures the solids, paper products, stuff. The liquid is supposed to, only the liquid leaves the septic tank. Goes to the distribution box and then leach fields, right? And then the leach field puts the water in the ground. If you have the regs in New York State, there's 2 feet of separation between rock or groundwater from the bottom of the leach field. That gives you 2 feet of natural earth to provide treatment. So that when the wastewater that you've now discharged to the ground, it's the groundwater, it is acceptable level of treatment, right? That was acceptable level is kind of a thing, right? So that's the way it's supposed to work. There's almost nobody in the village who has a system that's like that, right? For starters. So then the village's system consists of what's been built to date. It comes out of your house, goes into a septic tank, and then from the septic tank it gets pumped. So what used to go into the ground is getting pumped into pipes, taken to a treatment plant, it gets treated, and then discharged to a stream.
As a clarifying thing, Robert, that is just the liquid being pumped off, correct? The solids still stay in the tank?
That's right.
So it functions kind of like a traditional.
That's right. So the septic tank still does the same job, whether it's the traditional way or in the step. Well, that's what the STEP acronym stands for: septic tank effluent pump.
When you said that most people or nobody's system in the village is like that,
right?
What do you mean?
There's a couple more slides that'll explain it.
Oh, okay.
But that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the fictitious, If you were building a brand new home today,
Yeah.
it would be required to meet those standards, right? But any home that was built in the village and a quarter-acre lot does not look like that.
So you mean the stuff that whatever's coming out is getting into the groundwater?
Right.
In addition to whatever pesticides are being used, that's
Right.
all leaching down to the ground, everything.
Yeah, and I got some more pictures, a little more specific. Yep.
What if you have that system? Because I have an old house and I put a 1,000-gallon tank in and 5 leach lines.
Okay, so how big is your lot?
Over 3/4 of an acre.
So 3/4 of an acre, single-family home,
2 people live in it.
2 people live in it, and your septic tank is
1,000
gallons, right?
Cement tank.
So it's possible, but in DOH, Dutchess County, the health department approved it.
Yeah, it was all
Right.
done the way it was supposed to be
Right.
done.
So it's very possible that you meet all the regulations, right? So then your system will look like the one on the left.
It was
So
just
when you,
like that.
So when you flush, septic tank And then the, and then what goes in the ground is what comes out of your septic tank goes in the ground, right? Okay. So if everybody had that, right?
Well, I originally had a cesspool, my tractor fell.
Well, actually, yeah. You're jumping ahead, but yeah, that's what a lot of the homes around here have, cesspools, yeah.
I got one question.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 2 feet from the bottom of the leach field for the water
To rock or groundwater, yeah.
Right, so do we know what the 2 feet here geologically is?
So,
Because I imagine different substrates have different
yeah,
absorption
so when
properties.
you do one for real, you have to dig a test pit just to
Right.
find out, right, where it is.
What's down there?
But generally speaking, in the village, groundwater hovers at around 10 feet below grade.
And what is the material? Limestone or?
Around here,
Yeah.
it's outwash gravels. That's why we have fast perking soils. Yeah. Generally speaking, right? Everybody's different. So the actual treatment plants in the village, the first one that was built is the Red Hook Commons senior housing, and that was built the plant that now belongs to the village, right? And that's the site. That's the this is just the site over here. That's the smaller part of it. And everybody in it, like we talked, a little slide showed earlier, everybody in the blue, that's where their flows and ends up today. The green is what's proposed, what's currently called phase 2. Right? I guess that's it. Yeah, organized. So before the village turned, so when it was first installed in 2006, it was only for the apartments, right? It didn't belong to the village, it belonged to the apartment complex. So now the village has been trying for many years to do and the reports that I found, the older ones, there's probably older ones, but when I refer to the old reports that are done in the 2007, 2008 era. So the study at the time was like, okay, if the village is going to have a wastewater system, where's the wastewater plant going to go? What kind of wastewater plant are we going to have? Where's the wastewater that gets treated going to end up? So all those questions that we've been talking about over the last year or so, they were thought about 20 years ago, right? And so those studies, they looked at these decentralized systems. They looked at treating the water, pumping it to the Hudson River. They talked about putting a wastewater plant by the Sauk Hill and discharging to the Sauk Hill. The various, there was somebody on Luna Ave, there was an 80-acre parcel that was studied, that had test pits, wetland delineation. They determined that there was about, I think, 18 acres that was usable for subsurface discharge, which then could have been used for decentralized system. But then that would have given them, I forget the number, something about 200,000 gallons of water could have been discharged there. But then when you start adding all the other pieces, like you can't just discharge the water there. You still also have to have septic tanks and piping and other stuff. They determined that wasn't a feasible site. And there was a couple other sites that were studied. One off of Bender Road. That was smaller than that one. That also didn't pan out. They also considered doing treated wetlands. So instead of a wastewater plant, send the wastewater to a wetland, and then the wetland discharge into the stream. There was actually a study that the conclusion was that's the recommended alternative, but something happened along the way because it wasn't done, right?
Is that a man-made wetland or a natural one?
Yes, to create a wetland whose job is to do the wastewater treatment. So,
And would that be like 20 years ago? Our area looks very different now with the influx of people and, needs changing. Has there been any consideration to go back and reevaluate those plans?
So the areas that were identified, they were studied then, are no longer available anymore. And so, I guess to study decentralized system, we need to find available open land that would be open for that. That would be like step one, right? And it doesn't have to be all in one place, but there has to be big enough areas nearby, right, that you could pump the water to. And as far as I know, there's nobody, at least 20 years ago, they were able to find a couple of property owners that said, yeah, I would be able to sell my property and the village could use it.
That was before grants became the confetti out there. They didn't want to spend the money for anything. They had an opportunity to put pipes down Route 9 when they had the road torn up, and the village wouldn't spend the money.
Well, if you go back in history, I understand that WPA days,
No,
the village had the opportunity and they passed it, but yeah.
There's community preservation fund grant money now that can purchase land, that could serve that purpose.
Well, grant money comes with a lot of strings.
And also, the NAURA has a grant that can do an assessment for infrastructure needs, looking at decentralized solutions and stuff. I think it's open right now. So.
And I did talk to them, and they said that they told me about that, right?
Uh-huh.
So it is a national thing, and limited, I forget what they said, but for the entire country, they might have like 3 grants, right? So it's competitive, like everything is. And that's, so that's what they offer, their ability to do a grant, to do a study, to evaluate, right? So that's out there.
Well, the whole village zoning plan is based on having sewage.
Correct. So that's
Which never happened.
So if you go back in history some more, yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, that's in the book.
But the planning for the village was set up that way. It was supposed to be infill, where the people already live, which is the villages, to preserve the farmland outside the village. That's the Dutchess County plan for development, right? And the only way you can have infill development in the village is if you have a municipal sewer.
So question on the wetland system, which I call the reed bed system.
Yep.
So was any, did they look into something like that?
They did. So like one of the studies, that was their conclusion. It's like create a wetland and then discharge the wetland to either the Sauk Hill or pump it to the Hudson River.
Yeah, but it would be in line with what you're doing now.
So you have to still gather the water,
Yes.
right? You have to have a collection system, as we call it,
Right.
and then pump it to wherever the reed system or wetland would have been. That study was said, yeah, you should do that. Did not say, and this is where the wetland should be built.
Is there any possibility?
So I'm guessing that's why it never happened.
Is there any possibility to look at that again? Because I imagine that type of system would be much lower cost. And, like I know in Denmark, where they're kind of like cutting edge in this technology, they use those all over the place.
Yeah.
It's actually preferred, so it seems like this area would match that well with our wetland landscape. So is that something that could be revisited?
Anything could be revisited, right? So the biggest, there's examples of smaller wetland treatments around the area. I think Bard may have one. I think Germantown. Bioscience used to have one.
I have one.
You have one?
Tivoli used to have one.
Tivoli used to have one. The biggest one in the state that was like the model demonstration for everybody was connected to SUNY Morrisville. Because that's also where a lot of the wastewater operators around the state go to get trained. So they had it's a campus, so it has a lot of wastewater flow. So they actually have this is some of their flow goes to this, it's the wetland. Some of this goes to a traditional wastewater plant, kind of goes with their teaching. So that's and it's been up and running a while, like more than 20 years, right? So that's the other.
Tivoli had one, but the problem with doing it here, the one I have on Gusky Road is for farm labor housing and my shop. So you're not talking about a large volume of water. So everything from the tank, the affluent goes into the reed bed system, and after that, it goes into a regular infiltration system like you mentioned.
Okay.
Well, we're talking, I don't know how many, under 5,000 gallons of water. Probably 2 or 3, to do something when you're talking 50,000 would be a massive.
Or 300,000, yeah.
Right, right.
So that's kind of, I think, where the older studies kind of, it can be done, but it can't be done for village-wide treatment systems, right?
And
I think
DEC
it's
required
still
to have a
good.
speed, so.
I think it's taking, it's worth a look because I think it can be done.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make assumptions about these things because
Yeah.
like even man-made wetlands technology has improved a lot in the last like 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
And perhaps you could even have like zones of them. Maybe it's not all one, but maybe you have a couple throughout. And if it's dispersed, that kind of lessens the load on any one system, for this area.
Yeah, the problem with Tivoli when it failed because there was so much going into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how you size something this big, but it should be maybe visited.
Yeah, if the village wants us to, we could.
But if the notion, if I'm following, is that there would be separate treatment areas around the village, that makes the maintenance operation and maintenance side much more complex.
Not necessarily. I mean, like depending on the
Well, it might
type
not
of
be complex,
system.
but it's going to be less efficient because you're going to have somebody operating all, separate.
I wouldn't assume that either. Like the way that they work, I think they have like a whole different set of regulations for them and stuff. I think it's worth taking a look at.
Where the system is now, how much land is there?
The parcel
I think the
is
parcel's like 10
parcel's
acres, a little more than 10 acres.
And a
That's big.
But it's limited.
portion of it is
Oh.
is wetland.
Oh.
So then, yeah, there's
Yeah.
the wetland portion you can't touch, then there's the brownfield portion you can't touch, then of course the part that's already been used for the wastewater plant.
Oh,
The
so-
actual thing you're looking at is just that little triangle there
Right.
where everything is, and it goes into the tributaries that's in a densely populated part of the village. So if it fails on a larger scale, the people on Smith Street are gonna be like covered in poop.
So you're saying out of the 10 acres, you only have a few acres to work with?
Which is the way it always works out, right? It's just like even if you're building a house, an apartment or something on a parcel, there's not all of the land is usable, right?
Right.
One of your earlier slides, it showed that red area of the water table and stuff. Yeah, right there. So the treatment plant is in that red area,
Right.
like, right above the estates right there.
I don't know why I'm pointing
So
at all.
why was it selected to be within that area?
So
Wouldn't it be safer
treatment-
not to be?
So treatment plant discharges to the stream. So surface water versus groundwater, right? So once you discharge to the stream, it'll travel away from the influence
It
of the wells.
discharges to the left.
But it also goes to the right if there's a lot of water in that area, because it goes right behind my house when there's a lot of rain.
Right.
And if it does seep through the soils, it will be right there in that zone. So, it just seems to me like having it outside of that area is
Well, the
a huge insurance.
discharge from the plant goes that way. The idea is that everything that's coming out of the plant is going out the pipe, which goes out into the tributary.
And treat it, that's the key.
And treated is the key.
But that's just affluent water, this is not waste. So if you add more houses to it, they gotta be pumped. That goes up every year. You gotta pump it out, it's 250, 350, 450, depending what your usage is. And that goes on to the maintenance cost of the system. So that's why it's jumped as much as it has, and they could raise it again. I mean, in a few years, it might be $4,000 just for your sewage. Think about that. And
Well, let's-
a restaurant might be 8,000.
Let's see if we can get a couple more slides in. But feel free to interrupt me, because I know when you think of something you want to say it instead of wait till the end. So, let's see, where are we? Yeah, this is what we're talking about. They talked about the study. Should we go to the Saco? Should we go to the Hudson? Ultimately, ended up selecting. There was already an existing wastewater plant in the village. They already had a state discharge permit. The village decided to purchase it and expand it. Right. That's what I'm trying to say on this slide, so.
Does this
Well,
have to
I
get
would
done in
just
the
add-
next fiscal year or we lose the grant money or something? I feel like this is rushed. Like, there's not a lot of patience behind exploring other opportunities. We're pretty rigid in this, putting all our cards, all our chips in this bucket.
Mhm.
And the bucket's failed too many times.
Yeah, so, I mean, exploring other possibilities is always a thing, but,
Is there a time limit to get this done?
There is not a time limit. The goal, however, is to continue to proceed forward because the process takes a long time. Obviously, we're still in the process of grant applications and trying to get grants. And so at a certain point, when you start changing, there comes a moment where you look at all the possibilities, you make a decision, and then you move forward.
I feel like we haven't explored those possibilities we did 20 years ago, but not now. Just building on Kat's recommendation.
so I guess I guess the message would be that's up, the village made the decision to buy the plant, expand the plant, own the property. So now you have a wastewater plant, right? And the other open available lands that were around us have been used up and no longer available. So yeah, so your options are much, you can explore, other things, but it's kind of pointing back to you already have a wastewater plant.
You want the contract.
Either way, I mean, but
Even if it's, truly, even if it's not Delaware Engineering, the village still has 2 wastewater treatment plants in that location. And so all the piping is aimed in that direction. And yes, there's some things that have changed, but there's also a lot of things that are still the same. I mean, our population has grown a little, but not more than 5%. And so, some of the parameters may not have changed dramatically when it comes to looking at what the options are that there might be. So it may feel like it's rushed, but there are also certain decisions that were made 20 years ago that affect what we're doing now. So that's part of the process.
so the other part of this is I know that there's been operational problems. There were big problems last year, but you're supposed to actually treat the wastewater at the wastewater plant and then discharge it to the stream in much cleaner than it came in, right? So yes, you're protecting your water supply because you are treating it and discharging it to the surface water, right?
We're trying to.
I was around when we started this whole thing.
Yeah.
They used Hillsdale as an example why this was such a good system. I went up there, looked at it, spoke to somebody up there, and they got really upset at the board. And then Ed got upset, and then I called down to the county, Dutchess County this time, because that's Columbia County. I asked them, how often, what's the policy for this type of system? He said, like-sized buildings with alternative power generators. So why in essence, they violated their own policy or own plan when they expanded it to apartment houses, buildings, one-family houses and commercial properties.
You're talking when they built Red Hook Commons.
No, the Red Hook Commons built, they got the okays, because that was a disaster, environmental issue over there.
They cleaned up a 10-minute site.
I wanted a hotel there, they wanted senior housing. Okay, fine. But that was just to service that particular complex.
Right.
And the village just grabbed and just doubled the size of it. Of course, the first half was dying, that's why they would have to get rid of it. And now you want to double that again. I mean, where's the discharge water going to go? Right now, there's flooding out the people in the back, from what I understand, they're losing their backyards. So now you're going to double that. No one's mentioned anything about the additional wastewater going out. Well,
Another point of that too is that the man-made wetlands supports water conservation, which is going to be a growing problem with, not wanting to further burden like water leaving this area, but being able to reuse and conserve. So, I don't know if that need was something that was considered 20 years ago as well, but it is becoming a more growing concern now.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any indication that we have, at least on the horizon, a concern about the water supply that we have for the village.
Not
for you
currently.
because we get our water from wells.
So far, it's all good, yeah.
Especially with all the snow.
So has the, I'm still stuck on that diagram of
Okay.
of the water, you know, in a septic tank leaching down.
Actually,
into-
click up a couple forward.
into the water
Sorry.
table. My question is, has
One more?
the, if the
I missed it.
population hasn't changed, except for 5% over the last 50
Oh.
years,
Well, not 50 years, but
okay, 40
Okay.
years, has the quality of the water in the water table appreciably changed for the worse? In the, if the village has been using septic for all this time,
So,
and some people have to have it, like our businesses have to have it, higher density areas have to have it, otherwise we can't get a
you're
permit.
talking, do we have any evidence that the groundwater has
gotten worse.
Has gotten pollution, right?
Yeah,
So
so
before-
worse than it was, yeah, has pollution.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just curious about that.
So that goes to before they, the village did the project that's already been said and done, right? Something isn't quite right, because the slide they had, the cesspool wasn't on there. But this is the slide with the cesspool, right? So a cesspool is just a tank
Right.
with no bottom.
Yeah,
Sometimes there's no bottom and just laid up rocks, right?
yeah,
So it serves as a septic tank and leach field all in once,
yeah,
but it's neither, right?
got it.
So then it's just, that goes
Most
into.
people are cesspools?
Yeah.
Okay, I have what he is.
And so,
But what I'm asking
Yeah.
is that, how is the quality of the water in the water table, if that's what we,
so this is the study that was done 2014 timeframe. So that they each one of these was groundwater wells. They were sampling wells that were installed. Each one of
Yeah.
these dots, right? And multiple samples were taken of the groundwater in those locations, and it came back with the typical contamination you would see from human waste, right? High fecal, high ammonia. It was kind of like
okay,
exactly what you expect.
it's bad.
And it was what you would expect out of a
Community
toilet,
septic.
right? That's right.
In a community,
That's overloaded, right?
In the septics, that's what you would expect.
In a community that's overloaded, right? Because if everybody had his septic and the community was spread out, the groundwater should not have, fecal and high levels of ammonia, right?
So does that mean because I got a septic tank and I have it Board of Health approved, I don't have to go?
No,
Okay, that's what I thought.
it's a village, right?
They don't care, you spend 100,000 on it.
Same with everybody's connected to the water pipes, right? You could drill a well and have your own water.
I got another question.
Yeah.
This whole system is based on electricity pumping the effluent water out. What if there's a major catastrophe? Let's say the village goes down for a week. What are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
So the way that, let's see, where's the claims?
not that one. No.
Well, something's really off here.
I
Yeah.
probably picked the wrong version. That's too bad.
Okay, so anyway, so you have the way these are set up is you have your septic tank, like when you built it, it was said you need 1,000-gallon tank.
Yeah.
So the code says if you're going to have a step system, you need to add the septic tank to be one size bigger, right? So that gives you a days of storage, right? So obviously, if you're going to have if something goes bad and nobody has power in the village for a week, at some point you're not going to have water either. But if within a day's power outage or whatever,
Or you can go buy it.
but then you're not washing your dishes, you're not
You
laundry.
can get by, you can get,
Just to-
You're not putting the dishwasher or.
yeah, you're washing, yeah.
Yeah,
If
you
it
so
fails,
same
you're
thing would
saying,
happen,
without
right?
power, what happens to the septic? What happens to
without-
The
the
water still goes to your septic tank, right?
No, I'm saying, without power, what happens to the? where
I'm
it's
thinking in
used?
terms of like populated village, say like when they want to build this thing up over on the farm over there. It's gonna be a lot of people living there. So the power shuts down, say it shuts down, someone shoots a transformer, I don't know why, but the power goes down and it's down for a while.
We have portable generators that are available to go in.
Yeah, but
and
that's
pump
good
it
for a
up.
couple people, that's not good for an entire village. I mean, the village shuts down, all right? It happened they've had ice storms up north that shut entire areas down for really quite a long time.
Well, that's what I mean, if the village shut down, you don't have water, which means you're generating very little wastewater.
But I
Yeah,
don't-
tower.
No, that's what I mean, that would run out, right?
Oh, no.
From
you got-
personal
you got
experience,
generators all
it's
the
That
time.
you would run out of fuel, right?
No, I mean, we're looking at, like.
You
we're looking at
you don't,
something
you
that could
you only
happen.
have fuel
There's no
for
contingency.
for not even a day's worth, right? So you only have water for a day's worth, so if you're out, if you're talking disaster that's a week long, everything's
If
out.
there's a week-long power outage, would there be a major negative discharge event at the water treatment plant?
Well, I want to finish with something.
Oh, I thought-
My
sorry,
insurance
withdrawn.
company, excuse me, my insurance company, I was just shopping for home insurance,
Yeah.
and they asked me, are you on a sewer system? And I said, I live in the village of Red Hook.
Yeah.
I said, you know what they said to me? Get insurance for backup. They want me to get a rider if I hook up to that system. I mean, it's all around that this system isn't working the way that it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I
I mean, I know
mean,
you've got plans to make some changes to it, but I feel that you got another problem. I just heard from some other people that are reputable. They said during that cold snap, 20 systems froze and they couldn't flush their toilets. They had to be pumped out.
yep.
Mondale had that problem.
They could
Yeah,
flush their
that's what they said.
toilets, they could definitely flush your
They were hooked
toilets.
up to the sewer and the pipes froze, and until the effluents could actually start moving, they had to have them pumped every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, those problems with the ways that were installed, which,
But it's still a problem. I mean, you know,
But just to that thing, you have 2 or 3 days. So like when I lost electricity, someone came with a generator, ran it so the pump could go so that my tank that had filled up when we didn't have electricity, was it last year for a little bit here in the village? And then we had it, so it's not something where you're running generators all the time. You go,
I get that. I'm just saying,
Okay.
I'm looking at a catastrophe. My house has a backup generator, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. But what I'm saying is if the village shut down, and it can happen, what happens? Does everybody just like go, tough shit? I mean,
you
just
wouldn't,
to-
from a wastewater perspective, you wouldn't notice the difference.
I wouldn't. Even if it was down for a couple of days?
You would still flush, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was going to back up. I was understanding that when it got to a certain level, a pump had to kick on and then pump the water out.
Yeah, yeah, but it turns on at this level, so that if the pump fails, you have this much volume still left, right?
So what about all the people that are going to be living in this new development that we're going to build?
They each have their own tank, right?
I don't know if that's an
Trying to rock
answer.
ledge, I don't know.
I don't know if that's an answer, but I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
I would also just, to your point, if there's a major disaster, it also depends on how big the disaster is. That would be when we talk to the county, we talk to the state, we bring in extra folks to help us out. One of the things that was done was a look back on, I think this was a requirement by the Department of Health, what is the, over the past, and I don't know how many years, how often have you lost power and for how long? And actually, the village of Red Hook has not lost power for very long, for many, many years. And so that's part of what was looked at. But that's also why we have portable generators, so that we do have the capacity to pump out if that's necessary, which would work in not a complete everything out in the village, but it does work when, again, there's
When
some
one or
extra.
two houses go down.
There's extra capacity so that it's not as of if the power went out right now, you'd still have time to fill up your tank, and then there'd still be time for the DPW to go around with the generator and activate the pump, which then empties your tank, which then gives you a whole new tank to flush into. So that it's a huge disaster where the entire thing is absolutely out. I mean, we should have an emergency plan. We do have backups, but there are also certain emergencies, depending on what they are, that we would need to call in extra help.
I have a question on the bond the village took out for the loan to build this thing that we've got now. That was a 30-year bond, correct? So the system lasted 4 years before it failed. And do this every 4 years?
So it's a 30-year bond. It is no interest loan.
How many times are you going to rebuild the system?
Well, we're
and
not.
if you double the size of it, you're doubling the cost again.
So I guess I'm maybe not understanding your question. For the plant that we have, what we're doubling is the equalization tank. And so that will enable this plant to run, and it will
Well,
it
you're
will
doubling,
last for many years.
the costs of everything because of the size of the amount of water you're gonna be running, you know.
Well, the expansion that we're talking about expands the capacity. So the additional bonding that would be required, A, will not be paid for by the users of the current system. It will be paid for by the users of the new system. And the operation and maintenance it's more than double. The cost of the operation and maintenance is not going to go up at the same level. So you're going to amortize the cost of the operation and maintenance over more people. So more people, that's the positive side to a bigger system, is you have more people who pay into it and cover the cost of the
But on
operation
this system
and
here,
maintenance.
with the initial prices you were giving, the cost of operating it from a house was $700 a year. And you know, it's gone up quite a bit. And again, this got I've argued with them for like 5 years about it. Not you, you had nothing to do with it.
The previous guys,
The board
yeah.
members, there was, the gang of three was dictating the whole thing. And I told them that it was going to fail on both engineering part and it's going to fail on the cost part.
And the
because it's
reality
moving
is,
parts.
yeah, and the reality is we have a system. We have 150 parcels that are signed up or that are connected. And so we're in a position of having to manage that situation. Because we're not going to go backwards and say, okay, you know, put a new tank in. So we are dealing with the reality of having the system that we have. And by expanding, we have the opportunity to improve the technology and to amortize the costs over a larger number of people.
How is this going to affect getting a mortgage in the village for a house? When they see you've got a system that is, I don't call this a sewer system, it's a sewer project.
I have.
And if there's a failure out here
I'm not-
that hits the papers or that hits any kind of thing, your house will become worthless.
Ours.
I am not a mortgage lender. I don't know.
Well, they pick on everything.
Well, that I
When
would
you have
believe.
an area that's got flooding issues, or a septic system that's failing, that encompasses as much as the entire business district as it is now, now you're gonna go beyond that.
Well, the goal is, and why, nobody more than me wishes that this new system, A, was designed better, and B, was operated better in the beginning. We have come a very long way from a year ago, and the goal is to continue to improve, to go from the temporary to the permanent situation with a larger equalization tank that will smooth out the operations.
It'll never be permanent because you're still pumping the waste, the solid waste gotta be pumped on a regular basis.
Sure.
I mean, I get a
Part of the
cesspool, I do
system.
it every 30 years, whether it needs it or not.
Understood. The reality
You know,
is that we
but
have
restaurants and stuff, they're doing it multiple times.
Well,
That's
restaurants have priced
operating the
out.
system, right? I mean, when you operate a wastewater plant, that's part of it, right? It's
Well,
the
if you're treating solid waste,
sludge gets pumped
you have
out.
to do
That's
that too.
part of any and all wastewater plants.
So just to I think what you do, you have a few more slides. I think
Yeah.
you were going to do, Kat. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. You said that the new or the existing sewer customers would not be paying for the
Capital cost
Capital
of the expansion.
of the expansion.
Correct.
But the non-sewer water supply customers are paying right now on the existing one. So will they continue to pay into that as well? And will their costs go up with the expansion, or is that staying as is?
I'm sorry. Ask your question again.
The water supply customers that don't get sewer currently are essentially paying into it
No.
right now?
Not supposed to be.
Well, they have
You're
been.
talking about the interfund transfer.
The interfund transfer that happens every year, but it's not paid back, so we don't get that money back, so we are paying into it, and we're not getting the service. So with the expansion, are the costs on that gonna go up?
The goal is always to have the sewer users cover the cost of the project. It is also true that a sewer system does benefit the entire village because it is protecting the water supply. And as we've talked by law, if there's surplus in the water fund, that can be used for other things. So It will not be used if there is no surplus in the water fund. And the intention would not be the goal is not to have the water fund support the
I
sewer
didn't
system.
see in that letter though from that attorney that it mentioned that they are not 100% overlapping customers though. Was that also asked? Because when they're not the same, it has to be paid back.
So I am obviously not an attorney, and so this is something I don't know that I'm not going to have a good answer for you right now. So I'm certainly ask. I mean, again, we asked our attorneys what is the law, how does this work, and we got an opinion. So and I know we've shared that opinion, and actually the village got that opinion 15 years ago as well, or 10 years ago or something. We've had it multiple times. So I'm happy to circle back with you on that one. Where do you want me to move
Let's
forward?
go forward, yeah. One more, right? Yeah, so wastewater treatment, right? There's three broad categories. There's physical treatment, there's chemical treatment, there's biological treatment. And we talked a lot when things were going bad last year about the biological treatment, right? Bugs. That's how you biological treatment is how you convert waste into clean water. So we can go into a lot of detail of that, but let's go to the next one.
Next slide.
Yeah. So these are generally speaking in a wastewater plant. You have screening and grit removal, which is going left to right. You have a primary clarifier. Now this is generic. This is not the plant that we have. And then you have aeration tank, which is where you have the biological treatment with the good bugs and all that. And then you have disinfection and then receiving water. So that's a generic wastewater plant. And each one of those components has 12 different variations, right? Yeah. So this is a little more specific now in terms of different technology for treating wastewater. So there's, when you get to the biological, we're past the physical treatment and the primary clarifier is settling. Now we're talking the actual biological treatment. There's two broad categories. That's attached growth and suspended growth. And so there's a couple pictures here of an RBC and a trickling filter. Those are the two in the middle. Those are attached growth. So there you're basically exposing the wastewater to a media, and on that media there's bugs, good bugs, that are growing, and they consume the waste, right, and generate clean water. So that technology is, kind of the older technology. Trickling filters were developed in the 1800s, and it produces a certain level of treatment, but the level of treatment you can get with attached growth is not the level of treatment that we need to discharge at our location here in Red Hook. So attached growth technology is not a viable technology for here. So then we're to suspended growth, which is we use those activated sludge terms, good bugs. This is what we talked about in previous times. So that's kind of the picture on the left. So you have a tank that's we blow air into it to mix it, and the air is what the bugs need to live. They eat the food, they produce more bugs and clean water. That's what's happening in the aeration tank.
And that's what we have now, correct?
So that's the basics of what you have now. And then what happens later is what we're proposing. So on the far right now is a picture of a MBR, so membrane bioreactor. So the difference between what you have now and MBR technology is what we're proposing for the upgrade. The difference between the way so you're on the left, you have a tank with happy bugs eating wastewater, producing clean water, right? But now you got to separate those bugs from the clean water before it goes out to the stream. And that's where the existing system fails. And that's kind of the root of a lot of our problems with the existing plant. So there's a thing called a clarifier, which, well, can't see it here, but you can imagine almost like a hopper. You put the treated wastewater with the bugs in there, it settles. It looks like, to us, it looks like sludge, but it's the good bugs. They settle to the bottom, and they get sent back to their ration tank to go eat more food. The clean water keeps going. So when that process doesn't work, then the bugs start going out with the clean water, and now you have high suspended solids, you have ammonia going out, and now you have the UV can't work because too many solids. And in our case, we have a sand filter. So the sand filter gets clogged, which then causes an overflow, and then causes water to go to the EQ tank, and now the EQ tank isn't big enough. So this is a cascading snowball effect that happens because we have really bad clarifiers in the existing plant. So MBRs is, it's not just us, right? The clarifier is kind of like the weak link in an active sludge plant. And so, people are smart to come up with a better mousetrap all the time. The MBR came around. So you can do activated sludge treatment and not have the clarifier problem if you have an MBR. Because you have the water can only leave your plant through a membrane. And a membrane is basically a filter. So only clean water can go through the filter, and only clean water can go to your disinfection and to your stream. So there's a physical barrier instead of relying on gravity to settle your bugs and separate from your water. So that's like the big difference, big proposed change between what's existing and what's proposed.
Is that something that gets flushed out occasionally?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's on a timer, like most filters. Once the differential pressure across the filter, triggers a scour, and then if that scour is happening too often, then you do a deep clean, and repeat the process. Yeah.
The MBR would replace the bugs.
No. So the bugs are there no matter what.
Oh, I'm saying, okay.
But you need to keep the bugs in the plant and out into the stream, right? And so the MBR does that.
What's the lifespan on the MBR?
So what you're looking at there is what we call the cassette. So the cassette holds the membranes, right? And obviously there's multiples, you see?
What's the scale of that? Is it the size of a car or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so 10 by 10, say.
Okay.
And then, if you need, for more volume of treatment, you need more of those, right? Mm-hmm. So you can have 100 of those if you got a really big plant.
And you can compartmentalize them, add on, and stack?
That's right. And you can kind of see how they're sliced, right? So each one of those you can take out, put them back in. Mm-hmm. This has been around for about 20 years, but it was a big advancement in treatment. And there was a lot of lessons learned over the time. So now, you get to benefit from that. But so
Where is the sand filter in
so when you have an MBR, you don't have a sand filter.
Oh, you don't have the.
So the advantage of an MBR is you get rid of the clarifier, you get rid of the sand filter.
Okay. And there's some kind of backwash system on this, or?
Yeah. So you have air that continuously scours it, but then when you need to, you can backwash it, and also sometimes you have to chemical clean it. And so the membrane itself, it's the 10 years is the life cycle of it.
But if I understand you correctly, it's easy to replace a membrane, you're not having to redo a plant.
That's right. You can plug one of those things, put another one down, right?
So the plant itself could, because the core of the structure would last for a long time.
Right. So the way, concrete tank in the ground is going to last more than 100 years. Okay? It's the mechanical components that don't last 100 years. So, anybody who's owned a car knows this, right?
And technology can change too.
Technology can
Why would
change,
you
right?
want it?
Yeah. Here's another picture of an MBR and the parts of it. That's sitting on the shop there. You can, not in the tank, obviously. So I don't know if that gives you a better idea of scale of it. So that goes in a tank with wastewater, right? And only clean water can get through there because the size of the pore is too small for the bugs to come out, right? So actually, if you for the modern MBRs, if you sample for for bacteria, we have a limit of 200 colonies per 100 milliliters. it would pass that without even going through UV, because the bacteria would be filtered out.
So the best system is going to kind of stay in effect with the expansion?
So the pure stream best is what we have. That's kind of
Yeah.
the make and model. So you still need an aeration tank no matter what, right? You still need a tank full of air and bugs that do the treatment. You need more of it because we're going to treat more water, and then you need to the MBR then eliminates the problem of the clarifier and the sand filter, which has been probably 99% of the cause of the violation. So.
It looks like a lot of the things start to go off in the colder months too. Is this impacted by colder weather?
Not normally.
Email alerts.
Yeah, just like some of the testing levels and stuff. On the
Well, so there is one big key thing, right? So nitrification, which goes with our ammonia limits. So the warmer the water, the easier it is to achieve your nitrification limit, right? So that's the one thing. But in a wastewater plant that's covered in the ground, the temperature of the wastewater, it does vary over the winter versus summer, but it doesn't get cold enough to, we design for the winter, we design for the summer, right? So
But is it not correct that the bugs are less happy when it's colder?
yeah, so
They're not as active? Is that a fair statement?
yeah,
That's a fair statement.
yeah.
Have you had any pipe freeze-ups at the plant itself?
Yeah, nothing I'm aware of, right?
Not for anything that carries wastewater.
Yeah.
And this was probably the coldest winter on record, yeah.
We'll have for a while, I hope, right?
I don't know if it's found, but it's because it's also was such a sustained cold. It was below freezing for like 2 months.
Yeah.
We haven't had a winter like that in a long time.
It was below zero for 3 weeks.
I mean, at this point, given the extremes in the weather, it's certainly possible we'll have it again, but
Yeah.
well, hopefully not too soon.
So the other thing about MBRs, because the sales point for them is that because you don't have sand filters and you don't have clarifiers, the amount of area needed to treat a gallon of water gets reduced dramatically, right? Then on the con side of it, it takes more energy because you have to pump the water through a filter for it to leave, right? So that's the trade-off.
Going into this project, did you have this concept in the back of your head, or did you have to get your hands dirty, so to say, and work around it and come to this conclusion?
So this is when you have a small footprint and very tight limits, which by the way we have very tight limits, right? This is naturally where you would gravitate towards, right?
And I just want to go
yeah.
back to the tight limits, just to clarify. Because we discharge into such a small stream, our limits for what we have to meet for the cleanness of the water, if you will, are much stricter than, for example, Tivoli, which discharges into a much larger stream. I'm not sure that I understand why we have different limits, except that it's diluted more in a bigger stream.
What does Tivoli dump into? I forgot.
It's not the salt kill, do you know what it is?
Sheila? You know?
It's the white clay kill.
The white clay kill, that's it.
That's the stony kill.
That's the same as the stony, it is the stony kill.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
the same.
thank you, yes. It's just much, because I was down there, I mean, it's a much bigger stream.
Yeah,
It's much bigger. So their limits, I think you said that if we were discharging into that stream, we would have had no violations over the past 6 months.
So remember I said how 20 years ago they were like, oh, maybe we should just pump it to the Hudson River? Because that's the strategy, right? Treat it to a lesser level, because you can discharge it to a big river where the limits are very, very forgiving.
What's the daily flow rate of this MBR?
So it's whatever it needs to be, right? But the current plan is to expand the plant to 300,000. From today it's 75,000 gallons, expand it to 300,000.
I know, but what's the flow rate per day for that? That much water will go through that?
So for our size, for 300,000 gallons, you need 3 cassettes, and that's not a complete cassette. That's like a part of a cassette. The previous picture kind of showed a full cassette. Yeah, see that's 4 cassettes.
Yep.
we would need 3 of those. Because in rough numbers, each one can treat 100,000 gallons.
Oh. Okay.
Each cassette.
Yeah.
It looks like it does. See if I can get that in there. Okay.
So these are the famous tight limits. So these are about as strict the limits as New York State issues. Obviously, you've learned more than you ever want to know about New York State and regulating wastewater plant discharges, but they provide limits, and in the world of wastewater discharge limits, these are very strict. That's why when you have an iffy technology, you know, have problems meeting limits, right?
Can you talk more about the energy requirements that is added to that process?
Yeah, so like I said, right now, you know, wastewater has to get pumped to the plant, right? But then once it gets to the plant, it's gravity out. So in an MBR system, it's pumped out, right? So that's an added you know, energy use, right? So the counter to that is that because you can have a mixed liquor concentration that's much higher. That's the good bugs. Mixed liquor is higher. At least wastewater acronyms. Because you can have a higher concentration of mixed liquor bugs, you can treat more in a smaller space. You waste, you generate less waste sludge than with other technologies. So the 3 bigger components of operating a wastewater plant is labor, sludge disposal, and electricity. So labor is just, you know, it's a wash. You spend more in electricity, but less in sludge disposal.
So it sort of balances out.
So that's the way it works out.
Did you have something you wanted to say about this?
So that's that's a zoom in of this. So that's your existing wastewater plant. You know, in all its glory, right?
What's the current flow rate per day right now?
So the permitted is 75,000, but you're averaging under 40, right?
Yeah, we're 25 to 27 from what we call the A plant, and we're roughly 10,000 to, on a really good day, 12, and on a low, 8 from the B plant.
So what's the total?
Just shy of 40.
35?
40.
35.
Yeah.
And then with the expansion you're talking about for the village, what are you looking at for that expansion?
So the expansion would be to get to a total of 300,000, so an expansion of 225. 50,000 of that is for the town project,
The sewage line that they're talking about?
to the traditional neighborhood district, yep,
Right.
TND.
And that's going to take in the affordable housing also?
Right.
The 50,000 is for the town, but some of the remaining, that would be what, 175, some of that would go for the project at the Cookingham Farm, yes.
So you're trying to get to 300,000?
Well, the 300,000,
It leaves some room for future, right?
300,000 covers the green area, so that you've got the school, you've got up there with Cookingham Farm, you've got the whole, what is that, southeast portion of the village, chocolate factory.
Reddick Estates?
No, Reddick Estates is not
Oh.
included in this project. The goal in the long term is to cover the entire village, but in a phased process. And so this was the project that was felt to be the appropriate largest version of phase 2. Always knowing that if the grants don't come in the way we hope, then we can reduce from there. But it was recommended to go as big as you think you want to go, because grants are given as a percentage of project size, and they don't up from there, they only go down.
The future phase, like phase 3, I guess, that would include the rest of the village, would that be yet another expansion onto the same site?
Presumably.
Or added, like for example, we showed those cassettes there, right? So you could build a tank where you only put 2, but when the flow goes up, you add the 3rd, right? So there's more equipment, but the tank is the same. The other thing that the estimate of flow with the 300,000, that includes a lot of projected infill development and some, contingencies, etc. So for example, the village, the entire village is connected to the water system, plus some of the town. And you use 240,000 gallons a day, right? So 300,000, so if you use water, you also waste water, right? So it works out, even though I know not every drop ends up down the sink, right? So 300,000, it's one step at a time. Could potentially take the whole village, but only the future will tell us, right?
But the expectation included in the calculation is several housing developments that are
Don't exist, right?
well, I mean, one was approved, there are 3 potential known housing developments that are considered as part of this project.
As part of the 300,000?
Yeah.
So there wouldn't need to be more on top of the 300,000? Like that's the max? Or is phase 3 going to have more than that?
So phase 3 is going to be a ways away. So the 300,000, I think to Robert's point, it depends on how much is built, because there's also, for example, if you look behind where the auction house is, there's a lot of open space back there. So you could actually put some housing back there. There are other areas where you could add housing to the existing area that's in here. So part of it is it'll be to see what that does, what's used. You're supposed to plan with some spare capacity. And so I don't think phase 3 would start being planned until the usage got pretty close to the 300,000 being used. So phase 3 is a ways away. We got to get through phase 2 first.
So let me understand this. How much municipal water is being used daily right now?
Like Robert said, around 240.
240,000 a day.
Water.
Water. And only 40 of that is going into the system?
Right from the business
So
district.
what's happening to the other 200,000?
Goes in the ground.
Oh, because it's all not, okay.
Because it's the blue
Because-
section is what's
because
on.
everybody's got their own septic.
Yes.
A lot of
Yep.
people have their own, okay, I get it.
Everybody's got.
All right, so there's that question. Where'd they come up, and I probably should know this answer, where'd they come up with this 50,000 that they're talking about putting in on the south side of the town?
There's a whole engineering report that Time Bond did for the town, and it is based on the T&D district, which is a zoning district that the town has,
Right.
and it's also making some assumption of infill, but not the full assumption of infill, because you can do a whole lot more, and they also in that engineering report, it has a max, which is more.
I mean,
can't remember the number.
is that 50,000 current use or possible, I mean, I'm hearing a hotel going in and, who knows if they're gonna expand in hardscrabble.
Well, hardscrabble's definitely not included. If that whole area of hardscrabble, I don't know how many acres that is, but that's a big section.
I know,
That I don't believe is in the calculation of the 50,000.
okay.
The 50,000 probably has some infill, but not, and it may include, I'm not sure if it includes the hotel
So
or
it
not.
could be more.
The intermunicipal agreement that we have with the town right now is 50.
Okay.
And just to clarify, the collection system for the town portion and the portion of the wastewater treatment plant that would treat 50,000, that capital will be paid for by the town.
Well, that was my next question.
Yep. And it's about, when I looked at the numbers, I think it's about $3 million that they would kick in for that.
Because that's gonna cost somewhere around 6.5, 7 million.
Right, so you have the capacity at the wastewater treatment plant, and then you have the collection system, which is the individual tanks at the properties. So that's what, for the collection system is all on the town.
Right.
For the wastewater treatment plant, because it's part of our plant, the town would contribute their portion of, so right now we're adding 225, so it would be whatever percentage 50 is of that.
Okay.
If we choose to reduce the size of the expansion, it would be whatever proportion the 50 is of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And that report should be on your website. I know we do not have it on ours, but it
You mean
is
on the town?
on the town website, I assume, but I don't know.
I've got so much reading to do. I'm going like bonkers with something.
I got a question. Yeah. So I take it that the water that we use coming in, the fresh water, is how we're going to be billed for the sewage. Is that correct? So the more fresh water you use, the higher your sewage bill would kind of be?
I think that's just calculated, right?
Plus maintenance, and it's another $6.
So I have a question pertaining to, like, what if you got a big garden? Can you get 2 water meters put in?
You can.
You can? Okay.
The tricky part about that is the cost of the meter, and that is an upfront cost.
Because there's a base cost, right?
Yeah, and so it'll take a while to make that payback, but yeah, right now the way the billing system works is it's based on an average daily use in chunks of 150 gallons a day. Where we're headed is similar to the way we do water, where it's a minimum payment, and then anything over, so for the water, for example, the minimum payment covers up to 5,600 gallons in a quarter, and if you go over that, then you pay a rate for each gallon over that. And so the plan what we need to head to is the same concept for the sewer. We're just not there yet. We've made the first leap to use more recent water usage information because it was based on 2014 and 2016 water use. And so we just made that adjustment to use more recent water use. And then the next adjustment will be to change it so that if you use 155 gallons on average, you're only paying for the 5 gallons extra instead of a whole 150. But it's actually part of our sewer law. So we have to change the local law to allow us to do that, and we also need to do the calculation to make sure, because the water use goes up and down, we need to make sure that we're using the lowest possible water use to make sure that we're bringing in the monies that are needed to cover the cost. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Again, I'm really grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're asking questions. I have learned way more than I thought I wanted to know about wastewater treatment. We are not perfect, but we are definitely infinitely better than we were a year ago. We've discovered some design flaws that include the pipes freezing in the cold.
What are you going to do with that, by the way? Dig it back up?
Well, I mean, digging it up would to put it in correctly, you'd put it lower down, and whether or not. And so obviously, we are going to take all the learning that we have with what we're dealing with now, and we are going to make those changes so that we don't deal with that in the expanded program. Whether or not where the pipe is that comes out of the tank, can you put it lower so you don't have to put the tank that much lower? I know that in the short term, we're looking at the possibility of putting some sort of heat tape on the pipe that would then at least keep it warm-ish. It's probably not going to be enough necessarily, but it should. And I believe the number is about 16 or 17 tanks that had a frozen pipe. And so we're looking at that, and we're hoping that with the upcoming warm weather, I think we're supposed to hit 70 degrees at some point next week, that everything will thaw, and then we have, arguably 9 months to figure out an appropriate repair.
So in my case where I have a septic tank, what do? Do you take that tank out?
So when they did the project that was installed for first phase, there was a thought of maybe we inspect the tanks, and if it's in good shape, we keep it. I think the way it panned out is like every single tank was bad. So every single tank got put in new.
Did they take the old one out? Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't physically.
Because that way you don't have to redo your
tank,
plumbing.
They fill it in.
So where does the tank go? You guys decide where you're going to tear my property up, or what?
Yeah, there's a whole easement set up and all that, right?
There's a whole process of determining where the optimal place is. I shouldn't speak, but
Do I have
I
any
didn't go through
involvement
that.
in that, or is it just like, what it is what it is?
Well, the base, you have involvement, but the basic idea is you don't want to redo your plumbing, so the pipe is still going to come out of your house in the same place, and that's where your septic tank is, right? So septic tank or cesspool, and so you take that out, put in the new one with the pump, and then run a pipe from there to the street or wherever it needs to go, right?
And you guys run all the electricity and go to the meter box and all that stuff, is that on you?
That was all done the first time it was, right?
Yes, yes.
Where do you live, if I could ask? I'm just curious.
Pardon me?
Where do you live? What
On
street?
10 Cherry Street.
Cherry Street, okay.
I think, just speaking on behalf of the
Sorry.
commission, too, we would very much like any future updates, either like email to us or announced in the paper, or maybe made a little bit more current in the sewer reports, like at the village meetings. Like if there's another major component that breaks or a big, shift or something, just like a little more proactive communication for that, because I know this is still, a finicky system, to say the least, which is not anyone's fault here, but, as things shift and adjust, we'd just like to be kind of kept apprised of it.
We have a communication survey on the website, which I know this is slightly related, but if there's a method that you would like us to improve on,
Oh, okay.
yeah, just go through that and we're taking.
Yeah, it's in the, if you go to the village website and scroll down a bit, there's a, we want to hear from you. I can't remember what there's a,
Yeah, it's in the government news section on the
Well.
front page.
You can go to it.
Just click here, Kat.
Just one quick question before we leave. Thank you for doing this. Why was phase 2 the decision made to hit sort of fewer, more spread apart homes on the east side of Route 9 rather than the gridded out, more densely populated neighborhood on the west side of Route 9? So like,
Yeah, well, I guess there was two
a lot
factors.
more bang for the buck by going that way than going that way.
Yeah, I guess the two factors were the proposed housing, and that's closer to the water supply.
Oh, I'm sorry, what closest to the water supply?
So the east side of the village affects the water supply more than the west side of the village.
It's in that red circle.
yeah, hang on, let's just.
That half moon jagged.
Actually, that's the same circle, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So like, if you live here,
I see what you're saying.
you're outside of the influence of the wells.
Got it.
If you live here, you're inside the influence.
Could you point to the village hall, please? I'm just for reference.
Village Hall,
It's right at the top.
Yeah, it's like at the top of the red, by that, like right above that one, right above that, yeah.
yeah, this is Market Street. So that's there.
It's right
Yeah,
above
so
that.
it's actually right in that square right there, that's Village Hall. That would have been one of the test wells.
That's right.
And just to direct, it's the one in the middle, Village of Red Hook Constituent Survey, so it's just on the homepage. If you just scroll down, it'll take you to,
You can also come in and visit me and fill it out in Village Hall. And give us feedback on the operations page, if there's something you think is missing.
Those numbers that they had in 2014
Yeah.
on the coliform and E. coli,
Yeah.
are those numbers somewhere on the levels?
They're in a couple places. They're in the report that was done back then, and then we took them and added them to the most recent report also. So that they're in the appendix there.
so just to point out the village website, this is the wastewater treatment plant's operations page, which you can find under the sewer department. And so it's now, there's a table of contents, so you can click on any of those links. It's got maps, it's got history, it's got operations from 23 to 25, public outreach, it's got Zoom recordings, information on the operator, our speedies permit information, violations, etc. We talked about the difference between a notice of violation, non-compliance event, New York alert. We are under a consent order. Monthly reports, so those get updated. And the monthly wastewater treatment plant operator reports. And then there were a series of repair reports in 2025. So
Just one other thing too, as we report things also, I know sometimes Jake is really responsive, so kudos to Jake for getting back to us promptly on that. But if, we could also get like an update of what it was, because I know sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't. So just so we have kind of an idea of what's going on. That would be great.
Oh, the other thing is you can sign up for the New York alerts on there. There's a info
right.
on how to do that on our website now.
Yeah, I'm signed up, and we've advised everyone in the coalition.
Okay, great.
How to do that. We did that last year. Yeah.
But now there's a guide to have the same thing you got in email, but just on the website.
The wastewater part?
It's both on the wastewater, it's in the sewer section, and then it's also in Stay Informed. There's a New York alert.
Stay informed.
Yeah, at the top, that's all the ways that we reach out.
How to stay informed?
Yep.
New York alert.
Yep, bottom right.
Yeah, right there. So that takes you to a
That's
separate
it.
page that shows you how to sign up. It's a little funky, but this is a step-by-step guide. You have to create your own login.gov account, which is a little bit of a pain, but
And if you
once you
subscribe
have,
to all of them in Dutchess County, you get a lot of emails.
yes, you can get all the statewide. And because I know that between Les and Jake, they do try to get back to, sort of what it was. Obviously, with the most recent, sort of the February issue, it obviously took us a little while to figure out what the problem was. So now we know
What was it,
is.
a spill?
No, fan.
No, it
the
was
fan,
the
you
blow
said it,
fan.
yeah.
Because the equalization tank, as you pointed out when we had our meeting this morning, it's raw sewage in there.
Comes in smelling.
It smells. And so without the air being taken out of the tank, otherwise it goes up into the air, and that's what was happening. So now the fan is working, and so it goes through the odor control, so what comes out is basically filtered air. So it should have fixed the issue.
What was the last one before the fan, do we remember? Was that in November?
The last one before the fan, I think, was either October or November, and I think that was a belt that broke on the odor control. So that the odor control is key, and we need to make sure that we're constantly inspecting it to make sure.
But in the big picture, I mean, it's bad for us when it's an odor issue, but that's somewhat harmless compared to a spill where it's flowing into I know people could still get sick from airborne things, but it's still
we don't want either.
Right, but it's still better, if you could use that word, than the overflow into the river, into the tributary.
It is a natural odor that comes with raw sewage, and so we just need to make sure that the process is working for odor control.
But not all the odors were from the fan, because there were some other things.
Yes, there were other
Yeah.
things. So there was one instance where it was attributed to someone's septic system at their house.
No, Jake asked me about that one. I didn't smell that one.
Yeah, but there was.
But someone else had called it in.
Yeah.
Because someone who lived near there called it in. That's why he asked you.
Yeah, because I didn't smell that one, but I always smell that plant when it's acting up. And sometimes the people on Smith Street smell it, and I don't, and vice versa. So I don't know what that has to do with. But
So funny enough, it's Jake and I. You get an odor complaint. Jake and I are coming in. We meet up on Smith Street. We go over to the sewer plant, and sometimes we would smell it on Smith. We go to a sewer plant. We don't smell it.
Sometimes on Smith, I don't smell it, and I go down 2 houses because my neighbor's telling me I'm crazy, and it's there.
Yeah.
It's.
And some of that, one of the other issues that appears to be not as significant as the blower fan is the seal on the top of the equalization tank. Because of the temporary setup that we have, we've got a couple of pipes that are going into the top of the equalization tank. So the seal on the top of it is not
proper.
It's not proper. So I know that Jake is working on doing something that would make for it's not going to be a perfect seal, but it'll be a better seal so that it's not being opened as often. Because anytime you're going to open that, you're going to get some odor out. Again, with the blower pulling the air, it should pull most of it, but when you open the top, then you're exposing them.
there were also some overflows too, and that would cause the smell too, right?
The lime treats that, and that would oxidize those odors.
Once the
But
lime
we would smell it and
lime
call
is
it
treated.
in.
But also the overflow would be within the tank and then out to the discharge. So it's sort of a localized area, and correct me if I'm wrong, where the odor would come from. And some of it also depends on the wind, which way the wind is blowing, as to where it's going to show up. But again, the goal is to not have an overflow and to have our odor control system.
So you've added the alarms to the tank?
Well,
So- correct.
they are in line to be operational tomorrow. So, worst case, and apparently it's a really nifty system, and there may be opportunities for some additional.
It's like living next to a dairy farm. Or a pig farm. In the 70s, I don't think anybody was here in the 70s or even born, okay?
Careful.
There was probably 20 or more dairy farms in the township of Red Hook,
I grew up.
where everybody
That's a different.
spread manure, so when you drove around the roads, you smelt it all over the place.
I actually don't mind the cows. The chickens are the worst. But, yeah, I grew up around
Add a
cows.
little cow manure perfume to the.
It was funny when Dell Farm started spreading manure and the complaints that happened throughout the town. And to me, it brought back a great memory. Good night.
Thanks, Ken. All right, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
When the manure trucks are designed to.